She thought she'd left rockets behind. Until Elon Musk stepped into the back seat of her Lyft. The sun was just dipping behind the skyline of downtown Austin, spilling golden light across the glass buildings and dusty streets. Isabel Marquez squinted through the windshield as her 2017 Toyota Camry eased into a smooth stop. A notification pinged on her phone, new passenger, pick up in 2 minutes. She tucked a loose gray strand of hair behind her ear, took a breath, and hit accept. Lyft driving wasn't glamorous, but it gave her structure. And after a lifetime chasing stars, the earth felt disorienting. At 65, Isabel was supposed to be retired. That was the plan, at least the one her daughter Lucia had begged her to stick to. No more launch pads, no more late-night simulations, Mommy. Just rest, Lucia had said when Isabel finally walked away from SpaceX 5 years ago. But Isabel didn't know how to rest. Not really. And driving gave her a strange kind of peace. A way to stay anonymous. Useful. Grounded. She pulled up outside a sleek steakhouse near South Congress, the kind of place where the parking valet probably made more than she did in a week. A man in a dark hoodie and baseball cap stepped out from under the awning. He moved fast, head down, carrying nothing but a phone. He slid into the back seat without a word. Evening, Isabel offered, peeking at him through the mirror. All she could make out was a jawline and sunglasses. Good evening, he said. The voice was low, calm. Slightly South African. Her fingers froze on the gear shift. No. It couldn't be. Heading to Bastrop, she asked, trying to keep her voice neutral. That's right. The car eased into the flow of traffic. Isabel tried to breathe normally, but her heart was sprinting. The voice. That cadence. It wasn't just familiar, it was unforgettable. She'd heard it behind glass conference rooms and across launchpad comms, sometimes barking commands, other times murmuring ideas no one else could see. She dared another glance in the mirror. The sunglasses were off now. And even though the brim of the cap still shadowed most of his face, it was unmistakable. Elon Musk was in her back seat. And he didn't recognize her. Not that he would, she reminded herself. Isabel had been part of the propulsion team, a senior engineer buried under layers of hierarchy. She wasn't the kind of person Elon noticed. She wasn't flashy. Didn't network. She solved problems. Quietly. Brilliantly. She'd been the architect behind the Orchid engine, a modified Raptor derivative designed for thermal efficiency in long-duration burns. It had been shelved without ceremony during a sudden pivot to Starship 2.0. No explanation. No thank you. Just gone. Her hands tightened on the wheel as the city lights blurred by. Smooth ride, Elon said, glancing up from his phone. What year is this? 2017. Still runs like new. She smiled slightly. I make modifications. He raised an eyebrow. Modifications? On a Toyota? I'm an engineer. Old habits die hard. He chuckled, leaning forward slightly. What kind of engineer? Isabel hesitated. For a moment, she considered lying. Propulsion systems, she said quietly. SpaceX. There was silence. The air in the car shifted. Elon leaned forward, peering at her more closely. What's your name? Isabel, she replied, eyes still on the road. Isabel Marquez. Another pause. Then. Wait. Isabel Marquez? You worked on Orchid. Now it was her turn to be surprised. You remember? He nodded slowly. Of course I remember. That engine design had some of the most innovative cooling channel routing I've ever seen. You disappeared before the final review. No one knew why. I left, she said, the words heavier than she expected. They shelved Orchid. I took the hint. I didn't know, Elon said. And for once, his voice wasn't polished or curated. It was just real. The road ahead darkened as they left the city. Trees lined the highway, and the orange sky melted into a cool blue dusk. "Why drive Lyft?" he asked, not judgmental, just curious. Isabel gave a soft laugh. "You want the honest answer?" "Always. My pension's okay. But I missed moving. Talking. I like solving small puzzles, like figuring out how to get across Austin traffic without losing my mind. And sometimes, people surprise you." "You surprise me," Elon said quietly. Isabel raised an eyebrow in the mirror. "I remember your orchid schematics. We still use some of those concepts. Did you know that?" "No," she said, almost a whisper. "Nobody told me." "You never reached out?" "I didn't want to be the bitter ex-employee who couldn't let go." Another long pause. Then Elon pulled out his phone. "What's your number?" Isabel blinked. "Excuse me? I want to talk more. About Orchid. About propulsion. Maybe something else. We're working on a few projects that might need a mind like yours. I haven't been on a launch pad in 5 years. And yet, here you are. Still thinking in thrust and efficiency. People don't lose that." He tapped her number into his phone and saved it. "I'll be in touch." The GPS announced arrival, and she pulled into a quiet cul-de-sac surrounded by sprawling oaks. Elon opened the door, paused, and looked back at her. "You built something special. Maybe it's time to finish it." Then he was gone. The door closed. The silence returned. Isabel stared at the empty back seat. Her hands trembled as she pulled away from the curb. She had spent 5 years trying to forget Orchid. Now it had found her again, in the form of a billionaire in a hoodie. And for the first time in years, something flickered inside her that she hadn't felt since her last rocket launch. Hope. 2 days passed. No messages. No calls. Isabel had almost convinced herself it had been a strange, flattering coincidence. A brief brush with her past. Something to tell Lucia over Sunday dinner. Nothing more. But then, on a sleepy Tuesday morning, just as she was stirring sugar into her coffee, her phone rang. Unknown number. California area code. Her heart skipped. She hesitated, then answered. "Hello?" A crisp voice replied, "Ms. Marquez? This is Leona Kim, assistant to Mr. Musk. He would like to invite you to SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne for a meeting." Isabel blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "We can arrange your flight and accommodations. Would Thursday morning work for you?" Can I ask what this is about?" "Mr. Musk will discuss that with you directly." The call ended before she could say no. She sat at the kitchen table, staring at her chipped coffee mug. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for her phone again, this time to call her daughter. Lucia answered on the second ring. "Mommy?" "Lucia. I think I'm going back to SpaceX." "What?" "Wait, slow down." Isabel explained everything. The Lyft ride. Elon's recognition. The unexpected call. "You're serious?" Lucia said. "Yes." Silence on the line. Then Lucia added gently, "You sure this isn't unfinished business talking?" Isabel closed her eyes. That was exactly what it was. The next 48 hours were a blur of logistics and emotions. Packing. Booking time off her part-time tutoring job. And mentally preparing to walk back into a building she swore she'd never see again. Her flight landed in Los Angeles just after dawn. A car was waiting, sleek and black, with a quiet driver who didn't ask questions. SpaceX headquarters looked both exactly the same and completely different. The familiar white X on the glass facade still triggered something deep in her chest. Ghosts of launches, of long nights, of unsolved equations haunted the air. The receptionist checked her in and handed her a visitor badge, Isabel Marquez, consultant meeting. Consultant? A young woman with an undercut and smart glasses approached. Ms. Marquez? I'm Jade. I'll take you to the conference room. As they walked, Jade said, I studied your orchid schematics in grad school. I can't believe I get to meet you. Isabel blinked. You're too kind. No, really, Jade said. Your work was way ahead of its time. Some of us still don't understand why it was shelved. Isabel smiled faintly. Neither do I. The glass-walled conference room looked like it hadn't changed in a decade, white boards filled with equations, screens flickering with engine tests, the faint scent of marker ink and ambition. Elon Musk stood at the far end, flanked by two other executives. He turned, smiled. Isabel. Thanks for coming. She stepped in, shook his hand. Wasn't sure I would. I wasn't sure you'd say yes, he admitted. He gestured to the others. This is Dr. Raj Patel, head of propulsion, and Monica Alvarez, our systems lead on Project Pegasus. Pegasus? Isabel asked. Elon nodded. A new deep space platform. Still in early design stages. But we've hit some walls with thermal efficiency. And when I saw your orchid data again, I remembered something we might have missed. Raj added, we ran simulations on some of your old cooling architecture. With today's materials, it could outperform our current systems by 27%. Isabel's eyebrows lifted. You kept the orchid data? Everything, Elon said. We just forgot to look. There was a beat of silence. Isabel studied Elon's face. He looked tired, more lined than she remembered. But sincere. What do you want from me? She asked softly. Your mind. For 6 months. As a consultant, Elon said. We want to revive Orchid. Her chest tightened. You shelved it. I regret that. You didn't even tell me why. He glanced at Monica. She spoke gently. It was politics. Another team had backing from a defense contractor. They needed space, resources. Orchid was quietly pushed aside. Isabel let the words settle. They hurt more than she expected. But now, Elon added, Orchid might be what gets Pegasus off the ground. That night, back at her hotel, Isabel stood at the window staring at the glowing lights of L.A. Her laptop hummed on the table behind her. On screen was a folder labeled Orchid_Revival. Inside, files she hadn't touched in 5 years. Designs. Notes. Equations that once danced through her dreams. And pain. So much pain, tied to a project that had died without ceremony. She reached for her phone and called Lucia. I think I'm doing it, she said. Her daughter was quiet. I figured you would. You've been waiting for this. It's not about ego, Isabel said. It's about finishing something I believed in. Still believe in. I know, Mommy. Just promise me one thing. What? Don't let them forget you again. Isabel smiled. I won't. As she opened the schematic of the Orchid's second stage injector array, her heart beat like it hadn't in years. Tomorrow, she would walk into SpaceX, not as a ghost, but as a woman on a mission. The first week back at SpaceX was a paradox, thrilling and exhausting. Isabel was given a temporary office tucked between a lab and a storage room, with a badge that said Consultant, Pegasus Propulsion. She didn't care. For her, the excitement was in the schematics, the numbers, the possibilities that Orchid could bloom again. But then, something strange happened. On her second day, Isabel was reviewing old engine test data, numbers from Orchid's final run before it was shelved. Something didn't add up. She reran the math. Twice. According to the report, the thermal efficiency had dipped below safe thresholds during a simulated deep space burn. That had been the final nail in Orchid's coffin. But Isabel had built that simulation herself. She remembered the output. It had passed. The numbers now looked altered. She printed the sheet and brought it to Raj. These results aren't mine, she said simply. He looked up, confused. What do you mean? The thermal drop here, 12.6% loss in efficiency, that never happened. I ran that exact burn 5 years ago. It passed. Raj frowned, taking the paper. Maybe there was an update to the modeling framework? Or maybe, Isabel said, someone wanted Orchid to fail. That night, she stayed late at the office. Long after the others had gone, she slipped into the archive server room with Jade, the young engineer who'd first welcomed her. I need to access the raw data logs from Orchid's final tests, Isabel said quietly. Jade hesitated, then nodded. Okay. I'll help you. You're not afraid of getting in trouble? Jade smiled. You're Isabel Marquez. You made me want to study propulsion. I'm not letting someone rewrite your story. They combed through digital logs, line by line, timestamp by timestamp. Just past midnight, Jade let out a breath. Found it. There it was. The original test log. Isabel's burn profile, thermal loss only 3.2%, well within safety margin. But the official file had been edited 5 days later. And the person who signed off on the revision? Marcus Trent. Isabel's old deputy. Ambitious. Charismatic. And fiercely competitive. Back then, he had pitched a rival engine concept funded by a private defense partner. When Orchid got greenlit over his design, he hadn't taken it well. She remembered their last conversation clearly. No one remembers second place, ISA. Now, she had proof. At least, enough to know Orchid had been sabotaged. She sat in silence for a moment, her hands clenched into fists. Then she looked up at Jade. Would you help me build a prototype? Off the books. Jade blinked. Wait, like, in secret? Yes. I still have the plans. If we can prove Orchid works in real conditions, we don't need approval. We just need results. Jade hesitated, then grinned. I thought you'd never ask. For the next 10 days, they became ghosts. They worked late. Hid equipment under tarps. Used a decommissioned test chamber tucked behind the drone launch lab. They borrowed what they could. Created what they couldn't. Isabel brought her old notes, hand-sketched diagrams, napkin math, worn-out blueprints. Jade brought the software, the modeling, and the fire of youth. They worked like thieves. But they built like artists. One night, as they wired the cooling system into the new chamber, Jade looked up and asked, "Why did you walk away the first time?" Isabel didn't answer at first. Then, softly, because when someone rewrites your work and no one speaks up for you, it makes you wonder if you ever mattered. You matter now, Jade said. To me. And to a whole generation of engineers who've been studying your work without even knowing the truth. That night, they powered the prototype for the first time. It hummed to life, smooth and elegant. The burn cycle held steady. The heat distribution was perfect. Isabel watched the data scroll across the screen, numbers she hadn't seen in 5 years. Her heart swelled. Her eyes misted. It works, Jade whispered. You did it. Isabel looked at her. No, she said, voice thick with emotion. We did. But someone had been watching. The next morning, when Isabel arrived at her desk, a note was waiting. You should have stayed retired. Empty. Her stomach turned. Later that afternoon, she was called into a private meeting with Raj and Elon. Marcus Trent was already there, arms crossed, smiling coolly. I hear you've been running unsanctioned tests, Marcus said. That's against protocol. Elon raised an eyebrow. Is that true? Isabel stood tall. Yes. I built a prototype of Orchid. Off the record. With help. She handed Elon the thermal printouts, Jade's calibration sheets, and a memory drive. I did it because the official data from Orchid's last run was altered. She stared at Marcus. And I think you did it. The room was dead silent. Elon looked at Marcus. Is that true? Marcus didn't answer. Elon turned to Isabel. What's on this drive? Proof, she said. Of both things. Elon tapped the drive against his palm for a moment, then said, I'll review it tonight. The meeting ended without fireworks. But when Isabel left the room, she knew the storm had only just begun. 2 days passed. Isabel heard nothing. Then, on the third morning, she received an internal notification. Meeting with Elon Musk, 9 a.m., executive conference room. She arrived early. When she stepped inside, Elon was already there, alone. He wore no jacket, just a black t-shirt and calm intensity. On the table sat the memory drive she had given him. He looked up. You were right. She blinked. About? Everything. He slid a tablet toward her. Displayed was a side-by-side comparison of Orchid's original test results and the altered versions. A clear trail of edits. Log signed under Marcus Trent's credentials. We confirmed it late last night, Elon said. He falsified the data. Sabotaged Orchid. Isabel let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding for years. We've asked for his resignation, Elon added quietly. Effective immediately. Silence hung in the air like smoke. I'm sorry, he said at last. I let a great piece of technology die because I didn't look closely enough. You deserve better. She met his eyes. Not just me, she said. The team. The truth. Elon nodded. So let's make it right. That afternoon, Orchid was reintroduced. Not in secret. Not after hours. But in front of the full Pegasus team. Elon himself presented the project. He spoke of second chances. Of brilliance lost and rediscovered. Then, he turned to Isabel. Orchid is being revived under its original creator, he said. And she'll be leading the propulsion design going forward. The room broke into spontaneous applause. Isabel stepped up slowly, heart-pounding, and faced the crowd. She spotted Jade beaming. She saw engineers half her age, wide-eyed and curious. And in that moment, she didn't feel old. She felt ready. The next few weeks were a blur of momentum. Orchid became the center of Pegasus's propulsion redesign. Investors noticed. Engineers requested transfers to join the revival team. The old schematics evolved, shaped by Isabel's experience and Jade's innovation. And then, one morning, Elon called her back to the glass conference room. I have a proposition, he said. She raised an eyebrow. Another one? I want you to stay. Not just for Orchid. I want you to lead a new team, a division focused on overlooked ideas. Designs shelved too early. Engineers who've been underestimated. She smiled faintly. You mean, a home for the ghosts? Elon returned the smile. I mean a place for the misfits with brilliance. She sat in silence for a moment, then said, I'll need conditions. I assumed. First, Jade is my deputy. Equal say. Done. Second, I want full access to project selection. Of course. And third. She hesitated, then smiled. Call it the Orchid Lab. A month later, Isabel returned to Austin for a weekend. She sat on her porch with Lucia, sharing café con leche and sunlight. Lucia said, You look lighter. I feel lighter, Isabel said. Not because I proved anything to anyone else, but because I proved something to myself. Lucia squeezed her hand. Mommy, you didn't just come back. You bloomed again. 3 months later, on a tour of SpaceX's new R&D wing, a reporter asked Isabel, if you could summarize what Orchid means to you in one sentence, what would it be? She paused, then answered, It's for the people whose best work was ignored, but who kept building anyway. Sometimes, your greatest contribution comes after the world thinks you're done. Isabel's story is a powerful reminder that age doesn't erase brilliance. Quiet minds often carry the loudest breakthroughs. And no great idea truly dies if someone is willing to protect it. If you've ever been overlooked, doubted, or told your time has passed, remember, orchid bloomed again. So can you? If you're searching for clarity or a fresh path forward, here are 2 life-changing books worth exploring. The Second Mountain by David Brooks, a profound take on living a second, more meaningful life beyond just chasing success, and Designing Your Life by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans, a practical guide from 2 Stanford professors on how to reinvent your career and life at any stage. If you've ever felt like your chance has already passed, share this story. Someone out there may be waiting for just one spark of hope to begin again.